I don't think you must have read the report. That's what I concluded. I looked at the report, and I looked at what I found in there, and I found that lack of attachment and affection and inadequate heeding and being kicked are considered, and kissing and inappropriate sexual talk.
Sorry, excuse me. So you don't believe that there's something grossly offensive or obscene about an adult member of a religious order kissing a prepubescent child in a sexual way? You don't have a difficulty with that? I think it is wrong. Do you think it's criminal? To in any way to put their hands on a prepubescent child. Do you think it's criminal? That person should have been prosecuted. However, what I'm saying is that when you want to lump things together, when you want to take the corporal punishment and you want to put it in the same category as rape, you've done a disservice to the kid who has been raped, and you're just jacking up the figures so you can have this hysterical... Mr. Donohue, hold on a second. Mr. Donohue, as one of the kids who was raped, I can tell you I don't feel that this report does any disservice to me at all. And I can tell you that talking to people who've been in these institutions, they certainly don't feel that the report does them a disservice at all. And I really would suggest, and I have read the report, not only have I read the report, I've been working on the issues around the report for the last 15 years. So, you know, you may have scanned the thing, or you may have read it through some sort of rosy-tinted defensive view of an institution that no longer agrees with your view, by the way. But I can tell you I know what I'm talking about here. Your views, frankly, are ill-informed, they're obscene, they're trite, they're pointless, and you do a disservice to the church that you purport to represent.
Dr. Bill Donohue, can I say to you, the Catholic Church here in Ireland wouldn't attempt to take the line that you're taking here today.
Yeah, I know that because they've been beaten down for so long, just like the clergy in this country have. And look, I have a doctorate in sociology. I have read about child abuse. I know about this thing about taking place in history. And that's why this is what's called in the literature a moral panic. And I find it, you want to talk about obscenity, what I find obscene is that anybody would take rather mild forms of punitive measures, which were commonplace at the time, and put that into the same category with serious cases of abuse, so that you can stick it to the Catholic Church. And where is your evidence in your government-run
hold on a second. Nobody here is trying to stick it to the Catholic Church. What people are looking for is justice in relation to the wrongs that were done to children in this country. This is not some sort of anti-Catholic agenda. This is an agenda to get justice for children who were sexually and physically abused when they were supposed to be in the care of the state, and abused by the wrong actions of men in religious orders.
Let me give you some of the evidence, for instance, now, Mr. Donohue, seeing as you've asked for it. We'll talk about the implements used in physical abuse as found by the inquiry. In addition, and I'm quoting directly, page 57 of the report of the Confidential Committee, section 7.20. In addition to physical abuse as a result of bodily assaults by punching, hitting and kicking, there were reported a variety of implements being used to beat and physically abuse residents. The leather was the most commonly reported implement. Witnesses described the leather strap as strips of leather sewn together, measuring about 2 inches wide, half an inch thick and about 18 inches long. One end was described as a number of witnesses as shaped for a hand grip. They reported that some of these leather straps contained metal or coins to add weight. Accounts were provided of either making or seeing these embellished leather straps being made in the boot-making workshop. So the children were forced to make the implements that were then used to beat and torture them. The leathers, and I'll read you some evidence that the committee heard, which it's found to be fact. They used the leather for the least excuse. It was heavy, stitched and with waxed ends. It was very painful. You would scream in pain. As convent boys, we didn't have a chance. The other boys, the city kids who were tough, and the brothers all picked on us. We stuck together, which wasn't a good idea. Some of the brothers had different leathers. I know it because I made them when I was 14 in the boot room. Some of them had little tiny leads in them. Some had coins, some were straight. They weren't soft, they were hard. The report documents the use of these implements for ritualized beatings. It talks about not the actions of a few individuals, but a system that used ritualized beatings and physical assaults that were criminal at the time, that remain criminal today, and that were not corporal punishment, that were beyond the bounds of corporal punishment. It found that the sexual abuse of boys in religious-run institutions, Catholic Church-run institutions, was endemic. It found that the church understood the recidivist nature of child sexual abuse, that they knew that these men would reoffend, but that they simply moved them from institution to institution. And when they had to act to laicized, they laicized them and allowed them to become lay teachers, where they continued to abuse, often for very many decades, despite the pre-existing knowledge of the congregations and of the church. That's what this report has found. That's the evidence of a judicial inquiry found as evidence of fact before a high court judge in this country.
Yeah, well, there's no contest on that. You're talking about the most serious cases of abuse. I'm readily willing to concede of the serious cases of abuse that you just talked about are in fact obscene. What I object to is the idea that you're taking rather trivial forms of abuse and you're putting it in the same category with that which you just read. You're cherry picking it there, and you don't even.
No, it's a comprehensive document.
It's a comprehensive report. It's a document that runs to 3,000 pages.
I know that.
And for you to suggest that only 12% of the acts of sexual assault included rape, and therefore we're all being hysterical. Frankly, I believe that if we found 5 cases of rape that were known to the Catholic Church here in Ireland, that were covered up, that were denied, that were colluded with, where children were blamed for having spoken out, where children who were raped when they spoke were beaten, that would be reason enough for the kind of outrage that's being expressed in this country and across the world. And I just feel, frankly, terribly sorry for you that you're not able to have either the humility or the humanity. I didn't suggest that you needed it. I didn't suggest that you needed it. I nevertheless feel it for you, that you have neither the wit, the humility, or the humanity to understand what's being spoken about here.
No, but I have common sense, and I am not going to be kowtowed by people who have an agenda.
Enjoy. And you don't have an agenda for the Catholic League for Religious and Civil Rights?
Oh, my agenda here is not to defend the church when it's engaged in wrongdoing, but to defend the church when it's accused of falsely wrongdoing. And I'm not going to defend the Catholic Church when it is patently wrong, like what Colum just read there. That was indefensible. What I'm saying is this. The report is not chock full of incidents just like that. It's mixed in with a lot of other things in there which I think are laughable.
It is completely full of incidents such as this, and you're minimizing it as a disservice to the institution that you purport to want to represent. And indeed, thankfully, they've moved beyond your somewhat bigoted, rose-tinted view of the world.
I'm waiting for the Protestant, the investigation of the Protestant-run institutions and the state-run institutions.
It's nice to see you reduce it down to a sectarian game of football. I'm afraid we won't go there. They have indeed been investigated, and they did feature as part of this inquiry. The reality was that the majority of institutions in the country at the time, the vast, huge majority, were institutions run by the Catholic Church, and that's why the focus happens to be on the Catholic Church.
Right, we're leaving it there. Catholic League President Bill Donohue and Colum O'Gorman, formerly of 1 and 4, thank you for joining us.